Bad Batch has come and gone. It's crazy that it's been the whole season. So, on this week of The Force with Friends, Kevin and I are going to give our season 3 review of The Bad Batch, maybe talk about how everyone's predictions were wrong, and then
Yeah.
maybe talk about where we go from here. Look at The Bad Batch as a whole, maybe where the story can go after that epilogue, which was pretty awesome. So,
Yeah.
Kevin, before we get started, it's May the 4th week. So by the time people are
Yeah.
watching this, it'll be May the 3rd. I know we have big May the 4th plans. We're going to go watch The Phantom Menace in theaters. I'm
Yep.
super excited about that. I've never seen that movie in theaters. So every Star Wars movie that I've been alive for, I've seen in theaters except this one. So
Except this
I
one.
know you've seen it before, though.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see it again. I told you the other day, I feel like I'm just like back in my
Yeah.
childhood going to see it in theaters. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it should be fun. Maybe pod racing on the big screen will win me over. Pod
I'm
racing
hoping
on
it
the
will.
small screen
I,
doesn't, but maybe the
I
big
think
screen.
that's it. I think you just haven't seen the full spectacle of the pod race. I think maybe once you experience that, you'll be a pod race believer. So
I hope so. Well, we're going to a super nice theater to see this, so hopefully
that'll be fun.
it'll be like
Yeah.
it'll do the movie justice, is what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So, kind of before we get into the Bad Batch, though, I collect a bunch of junk, as you can see behind me, and Lego has big May the 4th stuff. So if you're like a Lego insider, which is just their free email club, you actually get like to buy the May the 4th stuff on May the 1st. So Ashley and I went over there today, and I now collect brickheads. So I got a Commander Cody brickhead.
New hobby.
Yeah, maybe. I don't
Nice.
know. But check that out. I
Those
thought
are
the
cool.
side of the box was really cool.
Yeah, I like the box art.
Yeah, so I don't know. I've never really liked these, but I like Clone Troopers, so I thought it would be fun to do.
Yeah.
And then also, we were walking out the door, and they had a free little section to make a Yoda, like a table set up. So just got to build this and bring it
Yep.
home, which was
Can't say
pretty
no to
neat.
free. Yeah.
Yeah, no, especially free Lego. Like usually it
Yeah.
costs just to look at a Lego, so
Yeah.
could not pass that up.
It's steep.
So, chat, if you're watching this in the comments, let us know your May the 4th plans, because we're hoping to have a good Star Wars weekend on top of Tales of the Empire. That's coming too.
Tales of the
So,
Empire. Yeah.
yeah. So, but scooting all that to the side, it's time for the Bad Batch Season 3 review. Now, I did wear my Jurassic Park shirt in commemoration of the Bad Batch Season 3, aka Star Wars Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
This episode kept that theme going. I mean,
It
I feel
did.
like there's 15 episodes. I bet 10 of them had some kind of animal in it, like Jurassic Park
Easy.
type
Easy.
animal.
Yeah.
So
No.
I thought I had to give it a little nod with the Zillow Beast. So let's talk about the finale. I think it was really good. What did you think?
Yeah. No. I loved it. We were just talking about how we're wrong about everything, but I liked that I was wrong about everything. I think we all
Yeah.
just kind of went into it having this sense of how it would close out, and so I think it ended the way we all really wanted it to, right? Like
Mhm.
that we wanted for these characters, but we
Yeah.
just didn't see that route. So I'm happy that I was wrong. I thought it was just a really good 45, 50 minutes. I mean, there was no downtime in the episode. It was a really good um, finale and kind of close out to these characters and this story. So I really enjoyed it. I thought they did a really good job of closing it out.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, everyone was wrong, right? I mean, if you
Yeah, they're
go
dead.
back,
They're all
watch
dead.
anybody's predictions, they were goners. Like, they were
Yeah,
not going to make it out. And to be honest, just kind of looking at how dire the situation, looked like it was going to be, getting to this secret base, and it's only 4 or 5 of them. Odds were stacked, against them. I don't feel like it's crazy that all of us thought that they
no,
would not survive, especially considering there's a lot of Star Wars canon out there, not just the original trilogy, but there's a
yeah,
lot of Star Wars canon out there that does not include the Bad Batch. So the fact that they all lived, I think that's a shocker to pretty much everyone.
yeah. I think there was that. Everybody kind of had that concern, like, well, if they're all still alive, where are they? Right? Like, there's always that question in the back of your head, but the way it closed out, I feel like you do a good job. It just did a good job of not feeling like there's a lot of story left untold with them continuing on.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll talk about that, but yeah, I just think they did a really good job of finishing out those arcs.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, just the episode as a whole, we talked about it last week. Like we had our big prediction video. A few people watched it, and I think most people that commented agreed that everyone wasn't going to make it out. They had a lot of stories still to tell. And the rumors were that it was only a 25-minute episode, which thankfully that was wrong. It was like twice
we
that.
were wrong about that, man. When we
they
saw
couldn't have done it. Yeah.
No. I mean, you the first half of the episode, I mean, was necessary, but it wasn't anywhere close to being done. And so, no, when we all saw that longer episode runtime, we were like, "Oh yes, thank goodness! I have hope now."
Yeah, that made me feel a lot better. And that didn't come out till last night.
Yeah,
it's like late.
I mean, we were cautiously optimistic with a with a 25-minute runtime. So that was a nice bonus to get that longer episode.
Yeah, agreed. And with it, kind of going back to where everyone thought everyone was going to have to die, and there's a lot of loose ends to tie up. I think they did a good job as far as the season goes. And we almost laughed a little bit, like with Echo being gone the whole time, like, oh, where's Echo? Well, it was actually kind of setting up that him and Rex were still going to be doing this thing the whole time. Like you keep getting like, oh, get in touch with Rex, or Echo's with Rex, doing all these things to get the clones to freedom. And you never like get necessarily all the closure on what happens with all the clones, but you do learn that Echo and Rex are still going around the galaxy figuring it all out. So I think that was tied up. You finally got Hunter and Crosshair and Wrecker getting a little bit of peace. You've got Omega really coming to her own. We have the Project Necromancer and Tantus. That's wiped out. They really tied everything up. The little Force-sensitive children got out of the way. They find their freedom. The Jungle Book kids from episode 2, they made it out.
Popped back up. Yeah, they really closed out all the people who'd kind of been involved in this. I mean, Emery and Nala Se, right?
Yep,
like they had good closure. I'm curious as to where Emery is now. Like, I'd be really interested to see what becomes of her. Where did she take those kids? And well, I guess no, she did take them there. But what she's going to do now? Like, because she's got to figure out something to do with them. So,
especially considering the future is like. Maybe I'll wait to say this, but well, I'll throw it out here. The future in this little time frame in the galaxy is very bleak. So we get this happy ending for a minute, but it does make you wonder what hole they all crawl into for the Galactic Civil War. Kind of an interesting thought there, which I think that's something they'll explore, but we'll kind of talk on that later. As far as this episode goes, though, highs for me. Obviously, Omega, like breaking out, taking charge. They kept giving nods to her throughout the whole time. Like they were like, "Who did this? The Empire, or Omega?" And they're like, "It was Omega." Kind of keeps doing that. And then you've got the Zillo Beast was awesome. The action was great. Like that group of operatives, man, they were bad. Like they were
that was
awesome.
A cool scene.
Yeah, and the animation was very good. It was just a lot to like, I think. So. Yeah. For me, scoring this episode, I give it a 9 out of 10, easy. If not a 10 out of 10. I mean, I can't think of any reasons not to score it a 10.
I'm going 9.5 simply because it's not really a complaint, but I wanted more Zillo Beast. It was so short. It was so cool, and I was hoping we'd get to see it rampage for a while, and then it just kind of rolls off into the sunset. I was like, oh man, he's gone.
I thought they were still going to have to deal with it. Like once, not Rampart, but once, what's his name? The other bad guy. Necromancer guy. What's his name?
That may be, I mean, they were thought to be extinct. That may be the only Zillo Beast in the galaxy now just roaming around.
Yeah. Planet, I thought they would still have to escape it after everyone else was taken care of. But apparently not. So, we both really liked this episode. But let's talk about the season. So, season 3 as a whole, it's easily my favorite season of the Bad Batch. I think it's strong from start to finish. I can only think of 2 episodes that I could have really done without, probably.
Hmm.
That were, I don't even know that they were filler because they moved the story along, but they just weren't. They could have maybe threw a few elements into other episodes to make it all tie
Yeah.
together. That would be
Yeah.
episode 2. So where it goes back to Hunter and Wrecker, and I guess is Echo with them at that point, or does he show up later? I
No,
guess he shows up
no, because it's
later,
just two of them.
and pretty much they're just kind of figuring out that they have to figure something else out,
Yeah.
to get there. So I thought 2 was kind of lost in the mix between 1 and 3, which were both really strong episodes, and then you can jump forward, I guess, to like either 12 or 13 when they are on that like big armored tank and they get Rampart out.
Yeah.
I think they could have got to him and not wasted a whole episode on that. But other than that, the whole season was, I think, pretty good.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of with you. I don't really have any complaints about any of the episodes. I thought, for the most part, every episode did a really good job of pushing forward plot points, but also character points, right? We had some really good interactions and character moments all throughout the season, just kind of building up um, really all the different characters, right? We obviously have all the drama with Crosshair, which comes to a conclusion, and Hunter's super cool in this season just because he is so driven, right? Like I was thinking back to all the episodes, and like he's ticking off the pikes, like he's working with crime
Yeah.
syndicates. Um, they're getting beat up on that mission with Fennec. He gets beat up by Asajj, right? Like he's been through a lot in this season with all of them, but throughout it, like he's so laser focused on
Yeah.
getting Omega throughout all of it, up to the point with the shuttle. He's like, nope, I'm docking this thing. I don't care, right? Like
Yeah.
it's been interesting to see him go from season 2 Hunter, who was like, we got to be careful, we got to be cautious, we got to lay low, to now that there's something at stake, he's like 100 miles an hour. And so there's been cool stuff like that throughout the season, to an extent for all the characters that I feel like has just really built up to where they kind of finally ended. So
Yeah. No, I agree for sure. I think Crosshair's story probably takes center stage for this season because his story is easily the most interesting of all of the Bad Batch from seasons 1 to 3. I think he's easily the most complex character, given that he has to deal with good soldiers follow orders, and this whole life now is built on not following orders. And so he sticks to the rule book a little bit, goes bad, comes back good. How's he going to wrap all that up? So I do think his story and his arc is the best one of this whole story, in my opinion. Omega is just a big, I don't wouldn't even say that hers is an arc, more so that we're still following her character. I mean, we have that epilogue, we watch her really come into her own, and she's changing the Bad Batch as they go on. She's softening them a little bit, making them think a little more critical. At the same time, they make her a little bit more erratic with some things, as we see her on missions, especially in season 1. I almost forget in season 1 how to the book she is. And then season 2 doesn't do much for me. She's kind of like, a teenager at that point, and going through those things. But season 3, I think she really puts it all together. So I like her and Crosshair's story a lot in this season.
Yeah, with Omega, like you could really look at this show as kind of like her effect on everyone around her, right? Like because the show itself, I mean, all like the way this resolves, like we talked about how do they make it out of this, right? Like how are they going to get in this plane and get out? Well, it's because they get help from people that she's impacted, right? That she has influenced to do something differently, like from Emery to Nala Se. And so I think Omega's character she is the embodiment of hope, right? She's always optimistic. She's always sure that things will work out. And that hope affects the people around her to be better and do better. And I feel like there's a huge theme of that throughout the show, where at the end we get to see all these people who kind of help them along to where they don't all, get killed because they have all this help, because Omega's just had this impact, right? She's able to get these kids to like get up the courage to escape. It's really cool to see how in a big picture of this show, so much is just from how she has affected the people around her. So I do love that about her character. And again, it's a very Star Wars thing, right? The idea of hope. And she's really the embodiment of hope. for all the stuff going on in this story.
I agree 100%. Did you think Rex was going to show back up in the last episode?
I did.
I thought he would be the cavalry.
I have I will say I have some issues with the episode title because I'm not sure who the cavalry was. I don't know that I can't think of anyone in the show that I'd be like that's the cavalry arriving, right? Like
the only thing I
ever saw that moment.
It would be when they free the clone prisoners, but then they all get wiped out. So that's what I didn't.
They get bodied pretty quickly. So.
And so do the Bad Batch. It's really Omega's show.
Maybe they just named it that just to throw us all off. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was a real cavalry. I don't really care.
I have to watch some videos on people smarter than me, like what they say about it. Or maybe Dave Filoni, he'll start talking too. And those executive producers, they'll start having some interviews now. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll learn a little bit more. But that's the one surprise for me in this episode was that Rex was only name dropped a couple times, not actually shown up, which I don't care. It kind of leaves us off on that. Maybe what the next show is going to be with Rex, and we got to get him to where he's at in Rebels, and Echo's with him. So I do think there's more to that story, intentionally not told, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, I think it was good they left him out. It shifts a lot of the focus to Echo, and kind of how he's really, really more completely splitting off from the Bad Batch now, right? He's kind of always been around, but this really does feel like he's moved away from that, and we get to see a lot. It was really cool to get to see a lot of him, because he was not one of the defective clones, but
he ended up that way.
Right, but those ARC troopers are no joke. I mean, they're the best of the best, and so it's cool to see him from that different clone background still, be pretty dominant.
He's the most level-headed, too.
It'll be interesting to follow him. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
like easily the most level-headed without tech there.
Yeah, well, probably because he's been in a he was spent so long in a much more structured, right, like routine, right, like where you were part of a group and you followed orders. The Bad Batch, they've always just kind of been able to do their own thing. So he does bring a different element to it, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the series as a whole, maybe. I mean, the season, as far as a season grade, scale of 1 to 10, I would give the season a 9 out of 10 easily. Just a couple things that aren't even bad, just preferentially I could do without. But as a whole, the series was driven from start to finish, and it did not veer from it, I don't think. So that's a lot to be said about that, especially in Star Wars the last 10 years or so, really. Sometimes story points just get left behind, and that didn't happen here. So I do like that.
Yeah, no, I think all of my complaints are, I mean, really, I wouldn't even call them complaints. They're just like, personally, that's not my favorite thing type of situation. I'm not super thrilled with the Asajj thing. I thought it was really cool that they brought her back.
But why?
But she was on screen for what, 10, 11 minutes?
The tops.
Does some really cool stuff, and then she's gone. And you're like, oh, well, she'll be back, right? Like they brought her back for a reason.
Yeah.
Not really.
You think she's probably going to be in that? We'll talk about it when I talk about the future stories, but I think she's going to be part of that Rex Echo story, maybe.
Yeah, I hope so. Like I do hope that there's a grand plan. For that, because I do like that she's brought back into the mix now. But I did have maybe some other expectations for maybe seeing a little bit more of her integrated.
No, I agree. So let's talk about this series, because it's not just a season finale; it's a series finale.
It is.
We start this off, and really, I think you can just kind of look at the first episode, which is a really long one. We really get introduced to the Bad Batch in the last season of the Clone Wars. Isn't that correct? Like season whatever it is, 6 or 7.
Yeah, because that's
when we're first introduced.
That mission. It's where they're rescuing Echo, right?
Yes, that is correct.
He's hooked up to that computer, and they got him all plugged into their like tactical droid network and all that stuff. So that's when they're rescuing.
From there, we learn that they're kind of a mess, and then we get into the first season. We get that really long episode, Aftermath of Revenge of the Sith, immediately there. They're on Kamino, and it's very Kamino focused. Season 1 is. So you've got Omega, you've got the Bad Batch, and you've got everything going on with Kamino. And that's good. I think season 1 is good. I think season 1 is long. Like, it kind of drags at points. Sid is a part of season 1 and season 2, right? So she
Yep.
gets progressively worse, and then not
She
in
does.
season 3 that, so we kind of get that going. But season 1, I think, is good. We get a good
Yeah.
introduction. We have, Camino gets destroyed at the end. So we see all this cloning or whatever. They're done with this. We're moving into
Yeah.
the Empire. Season 2, I kind of have a hard time describing what it's really about. We have some character growth. We get the stakes are high with Tech dying. Omega kind of comes into her own. Crosshair is another big focus of season 2, so that's good. To me, the rest of it, not the rest of it, but a good portion of it is just kind of filler to get to the last couple episodes. And then you get a little bit of the story on like what they're going to do with the clones. And I don't think they really fulfill on that promise. That would be my one series complaint, is like what's going to happen to the clones. And again, I think they're going to cover that more maybe in a Rex show, hopefully.
Yeah, it season 2 was odd because it did shift pretty heavily to like that clone dynamic with the senator and trying to figure out what they're going to do with them. And the Bad Batch side of things was really more like, we're just meeting some new people. We're kind of trying to get some money so that we can kind of get off on our own. And we wasn't
Pabu
really
in season 2, right? Like, we're introduced to the planet Pabu. Is that 2 or 1?
We do.
I think it's 2.
I think it's 2.
Yeah, because
it just doesn't feel like there's really a driving agenda for because really Hunter's like, we're just laying low, right? We're staying out of stuff. And so it doesn't really leave a lot for a really thrilling narrative. Now it picks up at the end.
A lot, yeah.
And so it really feels like season 2 was an opportunity to really have an interesting look at the clones. But it was really kind of pushing it along so that we can have this big setup for season 3, right? Like
it did do that well.
Best parts of the season were where it set up season 3. We get introduced to Emery and Hemlock and this nefarious thing going on Tantus. So all of that did a really good job of setting up season 3. But I think you're right. The rest of season 2 was kind of aimless, I guess I would say, in a way. It is hard to describe what it was doing, I guess, in parts.
I mean, for sure, it was a lot of character development for Crosshair and Omega, I would say.
Right.
And
that's true.
That's again probably setting up for season 3, like what you said. You get big setup for the two of them because Omega's kind of just trouble, with Tech, and Tech's trying to help her out for a good chunk of the season. He ends up dying, and so what's that going to do with the rest of the Bad Batch? So that does kind of set you up there, but they could have probably done that in 8 episodes versus whatever it ended up being. However, so many episodes it was. It probably could have been told in 6, if we're being honest. Like, you could cut a lot of it out. But still, when you look at the Bad Batch story as a whole, I don't think season 2 is terrible, given the setup it gives you for season 3. So I think the story bridges together very well. I don't think there's any huge, like, oh, that doesn't fit in with this story. Like, sometimes in some of the Star Wars we've got, you're like, what? Does that really fit with the story? Or does that make sense? Or is this just kind of a thing they're having to do because they've got to do so many episodes? I think when you look at this from 10,000 foot, it's a really, really good story. And you can actually watch these characters from start to finish and be satisfied with how it finishes. I think there's a lot to be said about that.
I agree. Yeah, I was telling you earlier, I think the way this arc in this show went is you really do get invested in these characters, and despite the fact we were all wrong about how it ended, I think it ended the way we all wanted it to, right? Like,
it did, Everyone's happy.
It was very satisfying to see these characters be able to find a moment of peace and to be able to be, like, literally just kind of be a family, right? Like, so it was cool to be able to see that, even though it's not what we envisioned. It was a great closing out for this full season, their series that we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, a couple things we said last week that kind of stuck out to me. One is we don't want any type of entertainment where we know everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that came up
Yeah.
at some point, and man, was
Yeah.
that true for this week. I mean, we
I was
thought we
happy to be
knew,
wrong. So
and
happy.
yeah, this is the good type of being wrong about things. Like Star Wars fans, we think we know what we want. We're super loud about a lot of things. We complain when we don't like it. And so Star Wars has always kind of subverted expectations. It does it very well, and The Empire Strikes Back. No one expected that big reveal at the end,
Yep.
and that set you up like, oh wow, that's kind of crazy. And then I don't know that the prequels actually subvert expectations that much. That was kind of pegged into a period of time to where you had to maybe the surprise is Anakin falling because of love. I don't know. Maybe that was the surprise, but then the sequel trilogy kind of subverts expectations the opposite direction with in The Last Jedi, where everything goes so hard one way. We're like, maybe not so many surprises all at once, just for the sake of it. And I think the subversion here was good. I think we're surprised in a great way that really fulfills the story. And so I appreciate that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect that the Bad Batch would just get completely like knocked out by that CX clone group, right? Like they
really
were
quick,
pretty awesome. And
Crosshair
even
lost his
Crosshair's
hand.
story. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like
that was crazy, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting that either.
So like we're all sitting here thinking like, well, Crosshair's like he's gonna get over the mental thing. He's gonna make the shot. No, he gets his hand cut off, right? And so then
which he did make the shot, but with the offhand,
his shooting hit. So and that's so awesome because it's like he has to kind of let it go, right? Like this thing where he's been trying to force this thing to work, and now it's gone. It's just like, well, like he doesn't have a choice but to move on. And so I love that last scene where he's literally propped up on Hunter, right? Like he's using him for support, using him to stable himself.
Unlikely there too, considering where they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, and knowing how he doesn't like relying on people. To see him have to come to this point where I can only do this by relying on my brother, right? I'm gonna lean on him. And then he has to trust Omega, this girl who he had major issues with and thought that she was just baggage for a long time. Right? He has to trust that she's going to do the right thing too. And so he has to suddenly just really give in to the people around him. So that was great because that's not what we all expected. We all thought he was just going to sit there with his rifle and finally make the shot, but that's not really what happened. It was really him not being able to figure it out and just having to rely on the people around him to figure it out. So I thought that was great. I thought that was a great way to end his arc.
You think she knew he only had one hand? I don't know that she ever saw that. So, like, do you think when she had that move where she was going to dive and, put her arm up and he was going to make the shot, like, that was her plan all the way. And they had the eye contact. Did she know he was missing a hand, though, when she was doing all this?
I don't know when she would have noticed that. I mean, it got pretty crazy when they started busting out of those pods. So
I can just see that conversation. Like, you did that with your left hand?
Yeah. Which one of the cool things I was thinking about is from the first season, very first episode. Tarkin doesn't like clones, right? Like he's not a fan. And he puts them up against those dark troopers
in the arena.
They're really trying to find a way to replace these guys, and it's like this little training area to where they have to fight what they're trying to replace them with. And so it really kind of gets bookended because they come back to this. It's a training arena, right? That's where they go. It's the training place. And again, they're up against this group who's supposed to be their superior, right? Who's supposed to be better and stronger. And so there's this really cool bookend of them showing that they're not going to be outdone by whatever the Empire is trying to replace them with in a very similar setting. So I thought that was a really cool way to kind of close out that, because that's really the first time we see them in a big fight in the Bad Batch, like working together. And then it's really kind of the last time we see them fighting together, is in that kind of that same scenario. So I thought that was pretty cool.
No, I agree with that. That is 100% kind of a parallel there. I do like that. How about in that arena too, not just to be picking and choosing scenes or whatever, those walls just keep coming up and down, and that one trooper like stabs the guy through the wall. That was crazy.
Man, those guys were awesome. I wonder, we talked about at the very beginning of this season, the whole Scar Squadron thing came up. You remember we talked about them, how they this has to be like an ode to them, right? Like
Yeah.
these special operatives that kind of in a
It's the
ways
exact
mimic the Bad
number
Batch.
too of the Bad Batch.
Yeah, so I feel like that has to be kind of at least a nod to that, which was cool. But
We
they
got
were awesome.
something right.
I hope they're not all dead and we get to see some more of them. That was
Oh, there's no way they made it out.
yeah, I know. I wish
Now,
they had
one more thing to hit on this season, though.
Oh
Actually,
yeah,
two more
because a
things.
few of them
One,
got like impaled, didn't they?
at least when Wrecker throws that one head first through the wall.
Oh yeah, no, he shattered every bone in his body. So
Hunter impels and electrocutes the guy. One
that
of
was
them
a
got
cool thing.
yeah, one got gassed, right? Like his helmet came
Yeah,
off or something when the gas
yeah.
was going. So that was 3 out of the 5. So I doubt the other
But
two made it either.
seeing Wrecker just being this brute force, like
That was
relentless,
so
even though
good.
he's like probably in the process of dying at this point.
Yeah.
Like that was so cool to just see him just like fighting through and just like not relenting. That was it was cool to see him really, because we haven't really seen much of that from him lately, right? They've been
Not
kind of
this
sneaking
season.
around, and
Yeah.
it was cool to see him just go full strength, just throwing people.
I was kind of hoping that Crosshair would be the one who got CX2 because they were kind of the opposites.
They were kind of, yeah.
You got to
That's
give
true.
Hunter his spot too.
Yeah.
Especially if Crosshair was going to get the final say at the end. So I like that.
Yeah.
Now, in this season, I do like how the Camino arc is wrapped up because you think you're done with that in season 1. And then Nala Se gets the final say on Camino, and she says, you know, the secrets die with Camino or something along those lines.
Yeah, she says it's not the Empire's, it's not yours, they're Camino's.
Caminoans. Yep. She took care of it. And Rampart, you know, I would not like him being good, quote unquote. So he's kind of a scumbag, and I'm glad he was still an Imperial scumbag. And I'm also glad that how it ended. That was good. So the whole Camino story's done. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, no, Rampart, like he is so Imperial, right? Like the always looking for an opportunity to go behind something to gain the advantage, and then usually it backfires, right? Like we often see the Empire doing things that backfire on them, in a pretty major way. So that's the Empire to a T, and he goes down with it.
Was good. Now, one last thing. We said we got all of our predictions wrong, but you actually mentioned something last week that came true. I don't know if you remember saying this is a long shot, or, you know, they probably won't do this, but if somehow they tie this to Stardust, you said that last week.
I don't think I said it on the podcast. I think I texted you afterwards.
Yeah, okay, so maybe you texted me. So this was not an official on-screen thing, but Kevin did say in a text, it would be awesome if they could somehow connect this to Stardust when Necromancer ends. Something like, I can go back and read the text later, but it was almost exactly what happened.
I think I was hoping for a more visual, like I wanted to see like the Death Star laser.
Death Star.
Pop up
like on Andor.
Because you know there's that other mountain back there. There
is.
There's multiple like facilities. I'm like, what if the Death Star lasers in that one?
Is another one.
But anyway, no. And to your point earlier, you were talking about how there's a bleak future ahead, right? Like it ends well for our group, but really at the end, Tarkin's like, yeah, we'll just shift to the thing that blows up planets now, right? Like
they don't care anymore.
For the Empire, it's just moving on to this next awful, evil thing. And so I do like that we see that transition to, all right, next thing, right? Like we're not just going to give up. Like we got lots of things in the works that are gonna terrorize the galaxy. So
now picture if the epilogue. Sorry, picture if the epilogue was 2-pronged. This would be the only thing I would potentially add. So Omega's going to fight in the rebellion, but then it goes to the boom, 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 to the Palpatine theme. Yeah. And he says something about Project Necromancer is done on Tantus, you know, some way that Sidious would say that. And then, you know, move off, whatever you want to say, brain power, money power to Exegol. Yeah. And then you just kind of just a one-liner to where you see that idea. It's gone in the sense of they're not going to worry about it in the galaxy that we know, but you still leave the cloning thought in the back of the head knowing, oh, Exegol. that's episode 9. He hasn't
Yeah.
stopped this yet. I thought that would have been a
That's
nice way to weave it on a little bit more, but no complaints.
Yeah, because it does kind of give a sense that like, oh, Project Necromancer's done, which we
But
know
it's
it's
not.
not, right? We
Yeah.
know it continues in some form or fashion. So it would have been interesting to see how that transitions.
Yeah.
Because we obviously know it keeps going. But
Yeah. So the Bad
I was
Batch kind
trying
of
to.
ends it, and the Mandalorian does too, because their whole cloning
Yeah,
thing was just
that's true.
what's his name doing it, Moff Gideon. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
Gideon.
We'll see.
Yeah. I was trying to think back to. I need to go back and look at Catalyst because I was trying to remember if this is around the time when Galen like pieces out, or if this is before that. I was trying to put those dates together and I couldn't figure it out. Because he's on the project for a while and then he's like, "Ooh, this is bad. We're out."
Yeah.
I couldn't remember when
I'm not
that
sure.
was.
Not sure.
But
I've actually
that's
never read
unrelated.
it, so I wouldn't know.
It's pretty good.
I've got it back here.
It's probably one of my favorite newer books
Got to read it.
in the canon. Not new, but newer canon.
New-ish. Yeah. So last thing for the Bad Batch, we get the epilogue. Omega's going to the rebellion. They need fighter pilots now more than ever. I'm assuming that's just leading right up into episode 4 is what I would assume. So that's pretty cool. Do you think we're going to get anything following Omega in the rebellion? I hope we do. I want that more than the Hidden Path Rex Echo show.
If it seems like they're definitely wanting to continue her character, right? I think the Bad Batch are definitely done. I don't really. I feel like this was a good closing out point for them.
Mm-hmm.
But if they do continue her story, I would definitely prefer for it to be. I do want to see like in the rebellion, right? Like being a pilot or whatever. Because we were talking earlier, I wasn't sure if it'd be that or if they'd try to fill in stuff in this big time skip as to where she's been and what she's been doing.
Yeah.
While that would be interesting, I'd much rather see her in the rebellion.
How cool would it be, her perspective of all these rebellion battles that we've seen on the big screen? So what if she's like the first Death Star battle over Yavin, or she's on Hoth and she, getting out of there, or she's showing up for the big battle at Endor? And what if when Hunter says, if you need any help, you know where to find me? And like the ending of that story is Endor from another point of view, and Hunter's called back into Endor. How cool would that be? Just to see something like that.
Yeah, I wish it's a little thing. I wish they'd just put like a year at the bottom when we time skip, because I want to know when in the rebellion this is. Like, have they blown up the Death Star and she's like, I got to go join now, or is this in the early stages of the rebellion? Like, I have no idea what stage of rebellion this is.
Like, are we after Lothal? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, like I just want to know, like, where are things right now that she's decided to go off and join? Just give me
whatever
a year.
it is.
That's not just something. So I'm curious as to
explore
when
that,
this
though.
is. I hope
that could be the best animated series we've had if they get in the thick of the Galactic Civil War with good animation, and it's not really a Jedi story or Force story. It's just the rebellion's perspective. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great final scene with Hunter and Omega,
and Batcher.
And Batcher. Can't forget Batcher. Because it gives good reason as to why they've, like, because they probably would have stayed active, but they're trying to keep her safe, right? And he says, like, we did it to keep you safe, right? So the idea that the Bad Batch just retired and stayed on this planet, it was for Omega, and so I like seeing that reason come to a payoff but now he has to kind of let her go and kind of do her own thing. It was a really good closure. It was cool. It was great, that conversation where he's like, well, you are our kid, right? Like, it was just a neat conversation to feel like this family really had time to be a family before now she's kind of off doing her own thing. So it was good.
I loved it. I thought they could not have ended it better and set up some more stuff going forward. I think they did it all pretty well.
Agreed.
So looking ahead to next week's episode, I think that's enough for the Bad Batch. But next week, we're going to actually be able to talk about Tales of the Empire. That's in
It's
we're recording
exciting.
on Wednesday night, so we are gonna in just a couple days have Tales of the Empire. So at some point over the weekend, I'll watch it, and I'm sure you will as well.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
we will know what's going on with Barriss and Morgan Elsbeth, the two
Yeah.
stories we never knew we needed, but we do.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. It's exciting. It's always kind of that somber, like when a show or a series comes to an end, because it's always fun having new Star Wars, especially new
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars that you're really invested in.
Yep.
And so it's good timing as this comes to an end. And
Yeah.
you're kind of like, oh man, the Bad Batch is done. These stories are done. It'll be fun to dive into something else now. So,
And then 3 weeks, and we've got the Acolyte.
oh, is it 3 weeks?
Maybe
Man.
4 weeks. 4 weeks. 4 weeks. We got the Acolyte.
Either way, that's not a long time. So
June 4th or June 3rd or something like that. Very soon. So
yeah,
very exciting. And then at some point, Skeleton Crew, and then they're saying Andor early 2025. So it's just
excited
here
for
we
that.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, should be good. So let us know in the comments what you thought about the Bad Batch season 3 finale, the season as a whole, the series as a whole. Drop that, but also let us know again what your May the 4th plans are. Did you pick up anything cool? Did you go watch The Phantom Menace? We want to hear that as well. And then, as always, we'll do it again next week talking Tales of the Empire. So thank you, and we will catch you next time.